Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh. Today, we're going to be diving into the State Connector, one of Flare's Oracle systems and attestation Web3 protocols, and what it really means for Flare and for FLR token and for users of the network. It is novel technology that other blockchains do not have this. So this is an additional component that comes with the Flare network. So you have your base EVM L1 blockchain, but Flare has these two Oracle systems. You have the Flare time series Oracle, which I'll post a link in the description below, which brings in probabilistic data. So that's like the different price feeds for XRP, USD, Bitcoin, USD. There's no set price. So a bunch of oracles come together and then they vote in voting rounds on the data they bring in, and it narrows it down and truncates it. The State Connector brings in deterministic data. So basically a yes or no question. Did this account on Bitcoin have this amount of assets in it? So it takes requests and then it processes them. So we're going to run through this. So Flare's State Connector is the solution to secure universal interoperability. It enables smart contracts on Flare to prove the state of any open system in a secure and decentralized manner. It connects to both an on-chain and off-chain data sources, bringing a new era of utility to dApps, which are decentralized applications. Faster and safer than existing cross-chain interoperability solutions, seamless deployment with no amendments or integrations required on the connecting blockchain or data source. The State Connector is a core protocol required for the delivery of F assets, which will bring non-smart contract tokens such as BTC, Doge, XRP, Algo, Litecoin, XLM onto Flare so they can use EVM-based smart contracts and access the decentralized economy. Sets the foundation for a trustless and secure universal bridge to be built on Flare. Allows for safe relay of information between all chains connected to Flare, leading to true cross-chain dApp interoperability and composability. We have yet to see any of these bridges been able to support true cross-chain dApps. Like, that has not occurred yet. So what Flare is trying to do here with having these core components, so everyone's so focused on the token getting dropped, it's about the technology and what's being built on these networks. You have to come back to that and understand that to really know what's being built here. If you just look on the surface and think of it as a token airdrop, you're not going to get it. So let's go into the introduction here. We're going to run through the whole State Connector in this video, and you're going to understand what it's meant to do and why it's a powerful component for Flare. And then you could process that and take that in as being part of the Flare network's blockchain because it's connected to it. It's not like Chainlink. It's not a dApp protocol. It's part of the Flare network. So Flare State Connector is an exciting new technical solution for secure universal interoperability, an issue that has long frustrated the entire blockchain industry. It is a new core Web3 protocol that allows the state of any open system, whether blockchain or non-blockchain, to be proven on Flare and used with smart contracts or relayed to another chain in a trustless, decentralized manner. It's faster and safer than any existing solution, such as like client relays with simple payment verification proofs, and it achieves this while maintaining the security of a full node. So these attesters run full nodes on the other blockchains. So that's why it's not just a little verification from an API on another network. They're actually running infrastructure on all these other networks. The State Connector has been designed to integrate with any other blockchain, no matter their Sybil resistance technique, making it possible for developers to build dApps that can access the value and liquidity of multiple chains with a single deployment. This also opens the door to a truly trustless universal bridge built on Flare. According to DeFi Llama, 21 billion 0.8 of crypto assets, dollars of crypto assets were locked in bridges as of March 2022. And this is expected to grow dramatically as more secure interoperability technology is developed, such as the state connector. Other solutions either require trust in centralized third parties, or they force other chains to conform to their standards. So an example of that would be like Substrate. Forces you to use the Substrate standards to have interoperable bridges. Other solutions use the centralized party. So that would be things like Wormhole, where you have a multi-sig, or other ones where it's just wrapped Bitcoin, and that is just, you're just trusting that group of entities there. In effect, changing the independent chain's protocol and code so they can't communicate. By contrast, the state connector can directly validate state correctness and withstand safety and liveliness attacks on any connected L1s, all without requiring a centralized third party or even a code change to the connected chain. So there's no changes needed here. There's a nice little diagram in here, and I'll post this link in the description. But it shows how the state connector is able to connect to these different sources of data. So you see the two here on the left. See, blockchain transaction data is one form of data. This would be pulling in, for example, the information from the snapshot of the XRP in December 2020. That was snapshotted and that was held by the state connector. It's able to be then used now on the Flare network to distribute the tokens. And then you have open real-world data. So this would be like the price of the Sunday's football game score or a baseball game. That's something that's publicly verifiable and it's real-world data. Now this opens up prediction markets. This opens up different type of derivatives. If you could pull in these price feeds or any type of data that's objective, like it's either yes or no, like was that the score at the end of 4 quarters, yes or no? And there's only a yes or no answer. So that's what that means. And the same thing goes for other blockchains. Now there's different types of data, and they're going to be increasing those as we go further. But it comes to consensus, and we're going to go into that and what that really means, because it's another consensus system, but it's tied into the Flare's underlying consensus. And this is a really novel breakthrough component about the state connector. It's not just, putting stake up and saying, oh, this is the right price feed. They're actually coming to consensus and going through down to the Merkle tree and going through consensus rounds to verify this and attest to that data. So let's go through some definitions here. What is cross-chain interoperability? It's a communication between two or more disparate blockchain ecosystems that are technologically incompatible due to the lack of shared systems, protocols, or code. For example, Ethereum and Solana, also known as inter-ecosystem interoperability. And now there's multi-chain interoperability, because I know these two, you hear these words, multi-chain, future, and cross-chain, but there is a big difference. So here's what multi-chain is. Communication between two or more technologically compatible blockchains that exist within the same ecosystem and share systems, protocols, and code. Think of Polkadot's parachains, Cosmos Tendermint chains, and Ethereum Layer 2 protocols, all known as intra-ecosystem interoperability. So even you could throw in the mix there XRP ledgers, sidechains. They're all interoperable with each other, but they run on the same core protocols. Same with Ethereum Layer 2s that they explain here. That's the same technology. But when you go from like Ethereum to Solana, that's totally different technologies. So what's a light client relay? Because you're going to need to know these definitions. A simplified blockchain node construction built for speed that only queries the header data of any transaction and therefore lacks the security that comes with querying a full node with full history. An oracle is an entity that connects a blockchain with external systems, providing data on their state. What is attestation? Attestation is a data proof provided to the state connector by attestation providers that confirms the validity or otherwise of any request. So for more details, the Flare glossary, and they're building out their docs section. So as of this date, Today is July 5th of this recording. The doc section is still getting built out, but once that's available publicly, we'll run through that, and that will be a good reference to be able to understand all this, because you know what? It's complex. There's no other way to put it. It's complex technology that you kind of have to understand, and it'll take time for the whole community and industry to understand, but catch on pretty quickly once things are being developed. And it's beneficial for the dApps to use all this. It's why different applications are built on different networks. Because remember, these aren't just tokens, and they're just not even just blockchains themselves. They're infrastructures. They're economic infrastructures that other applications and other systems and services will be built on in the future. And that's what L1, layer 1 blockchains mean. And then their native token, for example, for Songbird is SGB, for Flare is FLR. So existing interoperability solutions. Blockchain today consists of an ever-increasing number of disparate systems. To date, attempts at interoperability have successfully generated multi-chain interoperability between subnets of same layer 1 blockchains. You could think of Avalanche, think of even the XRP Ledger sidechains are like that. However, secure, decentralized cross-chain interoperability between separate L1s has been out of reach until now. Currently, two types of interoperability solutions exist: centralized multi-sig bridges and light client relays. Neither are satisfactory. Cross-chain interoperability is predominantly handled by the former. These are moderate to highly centralized systems, which are more susceptible to attack and offer little recourse to users in the event of failure. Excuse me. February's wormhole and March's Ronin attacks are just two of many recent examples demonstrating why it is necessary to achieve decentralized interoperability in order to keep assets secure. These bridges also face regulatory risks, are censorable, and introducing a critical centralized element into any blockchain process often defeats the objective of building the blockchain in the first place. And it's great points right there. I mean, we've seen the hacks from Wormhole. You know, they just happened to cover it, the VCs, but that was hundreds of millions of dollars because it's a flawed design. And you're not going to be able to build 4,950 bridges to 100 different networks and connect them all together. It's just never going to happen. So it's flawed in its design from the get-go. And they're temporary solutions that are being used now, but if they start amassing billions and billions of dollars, it's going to be a bigger risk. And Flare solution allows for decentralized trustless is always better. That's what's the core of every blockchain. And that's important to know. It's know what you own. So when you own a layer 1 asset, you know the underlying network has to be decentralized and trustless and distributed, and that's built into the protocols. So these aren't just crypto assets or digital assets. They are attached and run on underlying protocols and infrastructures. And that's where their value is expressed from. Remember Glenn Hutchins? The value is in the protocol. So these are the protocols that are part of Flare. Recent developments, cross-chain interoperability, have often implemented light client relays. Although they don't theoretically suffer from the same issue of centralization, but often do in practice, their on-chain implementation is complex, which causes them to operate quite slowly and with an inadequate approximation of full nodes security, making them more vulnerable to attack. They're also incompatible with certain types of networks and precompiled contracts, meaning they do not create true universal interoperability. So here's our buddy over here, Vitalik, had the audacity to claim that the future will be multi-chain and not cross-chain due to an anti-network effect. This means that more cross-chain activity there is, the greater the risk for all participants. This is likely due to his valid concerns about the robustness and security of light client relays and custodial solutions. So he says this, assuming there's going to be no innovation, and it's not even going to be a year later by the time Flare launches, and they're launching with the F-Asset system, which is going to allow for trustless interoperability between non-smart contract blockchains. And then we're going to have Layer Cake, which is going to be integrated with Algorand and their state proof system. So he made this prediction based on probably some inherent biases that he has because ETH 2.0 is going to be a multi-chain design. And that was designed, over the past couple of years. And cross-chain kind of cuts that out at the knees. So it's not about, being an Ethereum killer, but at the same time, it is true that what Flare's doing is pretty much, going to create a cross-chain world instead of a multi-chain world. So this allows for dApps to not have to just build on Ethereum and stay in a multi-chain ecosystem. They could be cross-chain around different blockchains. So that's the thing important to understand between multi-chain and cross-chain. Now the words multi-chain can be used in different ways, so keep that in mind when you hear it. But Vitalik basically said what Flare's doing is not possible because he's just focusing on those two ways that have been done so far. But we all know with innovation in blockchain, things, this was an inherent biased comment because he has a vested interest in a multi-chain future where ETH 2.0 is going to be like the center of crypto and blockchain, but that's not going to happen. So existing interoperability solutions, he does have a point on that there are problems with multi-sig bridges. Multi-sig bridges hold custody of tokens on one chain and issue wrapped versions on another chain. They're often a limited set of participants. They rely heavily on trust. This might work for some, trusted institutional if they want to do it that way. But long term, this isn't going to have ability to scale. Simple payment verification proofs allow for the proof of a transaction on one chain to another. They are vulnerable to various attacks whose solutions require a large and slow code base. So basically they're like a hack to be able to verify the transaction, but they don't really take in the full node. They're just a simple verification. And that's one of the problems. They're not really a full solution. And that's something Vitalik was pointing to, and he does have a point on. But he totally leaves out the fact that there's other solutions out there. Now, why is Flare able to accomplish this? It's because of things like the state connector that's able to be this eye in the sky, and it's able to fulfill requests for onto any other blockchain that it's connected to and pull data from it. It doesn't download the whole history of it. It's not digesting the consistent ledger of everything going through it. It's only pulling the requests that it needs. So what is Flare's vision? Since inception, Flare has had an uncompromising focus on achieving secure, scalable, decentralized cross-chain functionality through the development of superior technological solutions in order to help address issues slowing the progression and adoption of blockchain. Flare's ambition is to connect the decentralized economy by providing cross-chain interoperability with the speed of security of multi-chain. Flare will mobilize value between ecosystems, unleashing the full power of Web3 and a tidal wave of liquidity. Developers will be empowered to build blockchain applications with real utility and bring game-changing, disruptive business models on-chain. So that's a lot to unpack right there. And honestly, that is what is possible here. That's not even that much of hype, because the tidal wave of liquidity comes from the cross-chain ability to have DEXs where you actually have liquidity from any wallet that can swap with other networks, because the actual application can tap into those underlying blockchains. You don't have to build Aave on Ethereum and then build it again on Avalanche and then build it again on Solana and then build it again on here. It's just one deployment that could then tap into all those underlying blockchains by using the layer cake smart contracts. So the first step is to scale the use of blockchain by enabling all digital assets to flow freely, and in the process demonstrate the future can indeed be cross-chain. And the thing here is, it's not going to take that long to connect all 100 blockchains, because as the attestation of testers set up nodes on every other network, it's just one basically API and smart contract Flare has to create to launch to that network then, because it's pulling in all the data. And ultimately, this is going to be used then to strengthen Flare's consensus with the underlying consensus to make a really decentralized, ecosystem that could support billions and trillions in value that is beyond even just what Avalanche created. So, cross-chain with the security of multi-chain. The State Connector is a native open protocol on the Flare network, providing application builders with a secure building block for cross-chain interoperability. It is a new and foundational technology that makes it possible to create secure, universal interoperability between any two chains, whether one, both, or neither have smart contract functionality, bringing non-contract tokens such as BTC, Doge, XRP onto Flare so they can use EVM-based smart contracts, bridging any two smart contract chains with multi-chain safety. So, for example, connecting Cardano to Flare, connecting Algorand to Flare. Algorand Foundation gave a grant to Flare to build a bridge for them to get Bitcoin onto Algorand. And Algo is also going to be an F asset. So safe relay of information between all chains, enabling cross-chain DApp interoperability and composability. So just to segue here for a second, it's built for dApps to build on. So it's not something that you're necessarily going to use directly, the State Connector. It's an infrastructure component that pulls data. So application builders will utilize this in the future. Now, FTSOs will run validators and also be testers on the State Connector, which connects to the State Connector smart contracts. But it uses the security of the underlying Flare network as an L1. So the security ultimately comes from the Flare network. So State Connector is much more secure than previous interoperability mechanisms because it is able to fully query the validity of a transaction, including its history. Other approaches like simplified payment verification proofs are unable to do this. And so the proof has no detailed history to support its validity. This means that the State Connector is able to mitigate the risk of reorg attacks on connected chains, enabling cross-chain interoperability with security of multi-chain network. The first interoperability application to be built on Flare will be the F assets, which addresses the first of three bullets above. According to CoinGecko, as of March 25th, 2022, what does that say? 700 billion of the total 2 trillion value of crypto tokens currently run smart contracts. This means that 2/3 of the current total value of blockchain is locked out from participating in the decentralized economy. By minting non-contract tokens into F assets on Flare, new utility is brought to these chains. No longer are they simply an investment asset, which I call a pet rock. So you think of it like Bitcoin. If you can't earn or use it in any way, it's a pet rock. Same with XRP. XRP sitting on your Nano Ledger is a pet rock. Now they can be put to work, earning yield or rewards in decentralized applications on the Flare network. There is a DeFi party on Flare, and everyone is invited. Not only that, the F assets earn daily Flare. So just the minting of the F asset earns daily FLR. So how is this possible without impacting the price? Because every dollar that's minted, dollar value of F asset that's minted is causing 250% at least to be locked up in Spark value. So it creates this demand for Spark to get locked up as collateral. And therefore, if you're rewarding those for minting, it's still causing more to get locked up than more that's coming out. So that's how they're able to do that. This isn't just like liquidity mining rewards, we just dumping rewards out to people. The causation of the minting means locking up supply. And that's good for a price of Spark and FLR. Now, those rewards will come out, and they'll come out in Spark. And the thing is, FLR then could be used for collateral again, and it could be used to crowdfund projects that yield. It could be used, delegates the FTSO. So it has these use cases that the token being rewarded has instant utility, to dual utility actually, because 3 utilities. It has governance rights, it has collateral, and it has FTSO. That's not even counting any of the dApp functionality that you can use it with. So there's a whole DeFi ecosystem that we've built on top of that. So then there's the second interoperability use case. Between different types of chains will be solved by different applications. In fact, we have proposed a novel bridging system to do this. These applications could be built by Flare or by any aspiring developer using Flare's technology. A grants program and a set of native rewards will be announced in the near future to incentivize developers to build out FAsset, smart contract bridges, and relay systems across as many chains as possible. For an alert when grant programs is live, please sign up to the Flare newsletter or join the official Discord or Telegram channels. So here's a little diagram of the state connector's power, interoperability with any chain. So you can see the FAssets is one way. Then there's layer cake, which is the smart contract to smart contract. All right, so trustlessly read the state of any real-world event. Now this is connecting Web 2 to Web 3. And what is Web 2? Web 2 is basically the internet, any open database or open API. And we'll go into that now. One reason for limited real-world utility on blockchain is the difficulty in trustlessly bringing off-chain or real-world event data on-chain, which can mean that Web 2 solutions remain more functional and newly envisioned business models haven't been feasible to implement yet. Known as the Oracle problem. This is a big thing because this has been described by Vitalik and others since the beginning of blockchain. It has not yet truly been solved. So, known as the Oracle problem, blockchain applications that require external data to operate have previously needed to obtain this data from centralized sources, which creates an increased security risk. In addition to being able to trustlessly read the state of transactions on any blockchain, the state connector can also trustlessly read the state of any deterministic real-world data source and prove the outcome to any contract on Flare. This avoids the risks associated with current centralized models and opens up incredible opportunities for new utility and business models. And there is a massive opportunity here because the ability to pull in data from Web 2 has been basically closed off. We haven't been able to use that in the applications yet. And that's what's going to drive more consumer applications and real-world things going forward. And it opens up completely new business models. So we've barely scratched the surface of like what DeFi could do to begin with. But even beyond DeFi, going out into other types of applications out there in the world. So through the state connector, dApps can be created that react to real-world events such as bank transactions, insurance claims, sports outcomes, house purchases, or educational attainment. A universal identity system could be created that takes attestations from external systems through the state connector. Let me repeat that one more time, because I don't think this one definitely went past most of the community, I think, when this blog came out. A universal identity system could be created that takes attestations from external systems through the state connector. Basically, the state connector can verify and attest to things outside of the blockchain that that account is owned by that person. And this will be for different use cases. It depends on how it's actually being used, but it's able to achieve that capability. So that's important to understand because that's something other networks they don't have. Nobody has a state connector. Even these external Oracle systems, like Chainlink and those, they're able to do some verification attestation, but they're putting stake up. Where Flare's system is the opposite. It's rewarding for providing good data. So it's the opposite of slashing for bad data. Now that can be used. There is a model where you can relay data across different networks and put up stake for that and get slashed if you don't bring through good data. Because that's already been proven to work with Chainlink. It works in some scenarios, but it's not scalable for big Web 2 data. You need something that's scalable. So integrating new blockchains and data sources. No amendments or integrations are required on the blockchain or data source being queried. For new chains or data sources to be integrated, all that needs to happen is the development of a new API. This is a Flare side update, so it doesn't affect the queried blockchain's codebase. Initially, it will be a governance vote to enable new state connector data sources. The expectation is that the focus will be on integrating additional blockchains, and again, grants will be available for developers wishing to support Flare. In the future, it will be possible for people to deploy their own data sources as easily as it is to deploy a contract today. So, scalability. And it's not even the Flare team that needs to build all this. Other development teams can build out these bridges and contracts because they're all based on a core protocol. Introducing attestation providers. When an application on Flare requests a proof of a blockchain transaction or a real-world event, the state connector emits the request to a decentralized group of attestation providers called APs. The APs, attestation providers, are a separate group to the FTSO data providers and validators. Anyone may operate as an AP without any capital requirement. The security assumption is that if an independent attestation provider is correctly attesting to the requested state, then they will always be able to diverge from an incorrect default relayed state and end up on the correct branch of the Flare state. A detailed explanation of how this process works is available in our recent white paper. That's the Layer Cake white paper. I'll attach a description below to that, and that explains how, the sun logo that Flare's been using, that comes from this idea of the state connector and the branching protocol. And a simplified version will be provided in a separate article. More details is also available on the Flare technical docs page, but that's still under development. So let's go for a summary here. With the power of the state connector added to the Flare time series oracle, Flare has created a set of native open protocols which provide secure building blocks for next generation interoperability. Flare enables cross-chain interoperability with the security of multi-chain, faster, universal, and more secure. Flare will connect everything. And honestly, I gotta say, with these two systems, remember the FTSO, probabilistic data, Oracle system, built into the network in place of mining, right? So the rewards are available to everybody who provides data or who delegates votes to those who provide data. So this distributes out the token and it shuffles around the value to those who are participating and kind of is a tax on those who are not participating. And this is why engaging in the network and participation are going to be the core focus, ultimately, of Flare Network. This whole idea of speculative trading, it will always exist, speculative trading. But the idea is to create engagement and utility and use of these networks because they're not just digital assets. They're money infrastructures that have native currencies built into them. So they have underlying economic value, and revenue stream comes from the use on the network and their underlying protocols. Like the F-asset system drives revenue for agents to earn outside currencies. They earn XRP. They earn BTC. That's revenue. That's economic revenue that can be earned. You earn the native token from delegating, but other applications, the F-asset system is just one. You earn the outside. Layer Cake bandwidth providers will earn fees in outside currencies. So you want to be able to drive this economic machine. That's what these are. Underlying the L1s, some networks like Proof of Stake, you have to lock up the token. And you can't use it then in dApps. And it only is there to secure the network. So in a way, you're limiting the use of your currency. And this is what a lot of people say about XRP and XLM. Well, they're free to be used. And that is true. But now, what if you could use it and earn? And that's what Flare allows. The key is that you could simultaneously use FLR and SGB and earn from the delegations to the FTSO. You don't have to choose one or the other. That's so important. The only way to do that in Proof of Stake is create a staking derivative. And with any derivative comes risks. So this is the native token you're using. You're just wrapping it, putting smart contracts around it. And then there's core smart contracts that are built into FLR that are very powerful, that are beyond things that you see on ETH, because they could run higher computations and they could run with higher gas usage that users don't have to pay. So there is some inherent technical advantages if you go even deeper into this. But these two Oracle systems are part of Flare. So everyone's like, why does this take so long? Why does it take so long to launch? Because these have been built out over 5 years. But the FTSO system has been built on Songbird, right? It's live. The state connector system is live on Songbird. So they're already tested, built, done, real world. Now they're getting upgraded little enhancements and tweaks for the Flare launch. I'm just going to go over this one more time because I want to get this through. People to understand when Flare goes through the genesis process of launch, and then there's that observation period, they're transitioning validation power to the FTSOs through vote power and reward rate of the FTSOs through those rounds. While we don't have our tokens yet, nobody's earning actual rewards, but they're transferring validation power. Why is this important? This is important because Flare is going to have the token distribution, airdrop, and be decentralized. Consensus will be decentralized at the start. So your time for waiting is well worth it because we get a decentralized consensus and a wide distribution of the token. Nobody has more than 1% except the Flare team, but there's no big whales out there. There's no VC investors. There's been no public sale, no private sale of the token. Now, there will also then be a liquid democracy DAO-like governance built into Flare. Now, there'll be initial set parameters, but a governance proposal will be out shortly after, and that will implement and update the whole distribution of the rest 85%. So the initial 15% will be there, but the rest is likely to change in how it's distributed. I don't want to say that's going to be different in 3 years, but the way it's distributed and how are likely to change in a good way for most people who are looking to participate in the network. But we'll have to wait on details for that governance proposal to come out, which should be before we receive the actual airdrop. So we'll kind of have an idea of what's coming. And the whole idea behind that is going to be mechanism design to get people to engage with the network. And you'll most likely be able to update your address off an exchange to a new address, which I think now more than ever, nobody wants to leave their distribution on an exchange trusting them for 3 years. So likely you're going to get some additional, potentially, we'll see, with the governance proposal to engage with the network. And this is good. So it's getting people away from the speculative trading and actually the point of receiving the token. You're not receiving the token because, oh, we valued you as an XRP holder, here's some free money. No, you're getting the token to engage with the network, Flare, and to be part of the underlying ecosystem and community that comes with that. And they're able to do things that other networks are not able to do. One, inherently by the design and of the distribution. They're able to airdrop. They don't have to have a token sale. There's no big VCs like Avalanche and Solana. Had all these big VCs invest in them. They ran the validators, right? They dumped on the market, during the bull run, and his prices still went up last year. But they had a big stake in there because that's the only way to get proof of stake going. How do you get the token distributed? Flare was able to bootstrap off one of the biggest, if not the biggest community, the XRP community, who hasn't had anything too much to do with the actual engaging with the network with XRP Ledger. Some, and we're getting there with XRP, but nothing with real smart contracts and a DeFi economy. But now the whole ecosystem, all blockchains changing. We're going to move from a speculative only to a real utility driven. But utility driven happens on the blockchain or on applications built on it. It's not some secret system where utility goes on. Utility is you using your token. So just know that that's how Flare is built. It's built for the community to engage with governance. Those who will participate will be able to earn and help the network grow. And the mechanism designs are set up in a way so that the behaviors are rewarded who are good, and those who don't behave or don't participate then are taxed or get nothing. And this will drive more of utility onto the network and less of this spec trading, especially if people could update their address. I mean, you think most of the tokens are going to people on exchanges. If you're able to update, and there's an incentive with that, that's going to have a huge impact compared to like the Songbird distribution. I'm going to leave off with this. Songbird is a canary network and a test network. dApps that are tested on there, that have big red boxes at the top, don't expect to earn massive rewards from. These are tested, early stage dApps. Don't put all your money in it. Not financial advice, but don't expect to get rich quick off of, beta tested, dApps that are on Songbird, which isn't even at max, isn't full capabilities yet. We don't have F assets. We don't have layer cake assets. We only have FTSO version 1, so it's still, we don't even have Flare network yet. So just be patient, and there will be dApps that will be worthwhile. But, choose wisely. Don't expect to get rich quick with beta testing dApps. All right, just, not financial advice, but, just don't conflate dApps with Songbird. Songbird has been massively successful. Flare Finance, Oracle Swap, anything doesn't have anything to do with actual Songbird. They're all different types of dApps that will be built on Songbird and Flare. It's going to have hundreds in the future, and you'll have to choose which ones you want to participate in or not. That will be up to you, and we'll have a wide variety of those things. But the F-Asset system and the FTSO are core protocols built into Flare. So they're built in natively. And we'll be able to test the F-Assets shortly on the Songbird network. Now, they won't come with daily rewards because it's a kind of a testing of real-world value. And David Schwartz said this: if Songbird is successful in being used and is up and running, no bugs, no big problems, and hasn't had any, Flare will be more successful. So it's Songbird that has allowed Flare to be able to launch with this type of design and success because it's already set up. It could be decentralized out the gate. They already have all the FTSOs. So if Flare would have launched last July, there would have been no FTSOs. It would have been centralized out the gate. It would have taken time to get all the FTSOs. It would have taken time to build everything up. It would have been definitely very rushed. So now I see why it was definitely a better choice to wait and build the Canary network with something this powerful. When you're adding these state connector and the FTSO to it, you need to be able to do this right. And I think they just, got more attention than they expected. And I think this was by far the right decision to do. And now this observation period, definitely the right decision to do. Because now Flare could launch with more success. And I'm Mickey B. Fresh, and I'm out.